All right. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the From the Desk of the Deans podcast with yours truly, Trey Brown, Mr. Dave West, and Clarence Brown as well.
Yes, sir.
And we are excited to be back for episode 3. We've had
Episode three.
some good conversations. Last week we had the pleasure of actually getting to have a former MES intern come back in and talk with us and share some knowledge. And so just excited to be back with you all.
Yes, it's good to be here. It's good to be here.
And we do have an exciting topic today.
We
Uh,
do.
we're calling it the accountability check. We're talking about all about accountability and how we can shift from a mindset of being a victim and that life is affecting us, and how can we shift our mindset towards what can I do to start affecting life? And so that's what we are going to be talking about today. Before we even, get any further into taking accountability, I have a question for both of y'all. I just want to get your perspective, but what does a victim mentality look like to either one of y'all?
Okay, I'll jump in. I'll jump in. The victim mentality that's tied into everybody against me. You know, it's all broken. It's all your fault. Um, I can't advance, and it has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with everybody else. So woe is me is the phrase that comes, the thought that comes to mind. That's one perspective I could share.
Yeah. I'd say it's somebody who superimposes themselves to the bottom of the heap, right?
Mm.
They give
Mm,
up all their power. They give up all their power and superimpose themselves to the bottom of the heap.
I like
Yeah.
that. I like that. I like both of those answers. I've always just looked at it as I'm always a person, recognize the situation you're in, recognize what you are up against, but then also remember to make that shift into, okay, now, but what can I do?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And so I definitely want to take some time to talk all about what can we do today.
Mm.
And just before we even go any deeper into it, I want to, you know, we've talked about a concept before in conversation. We've talked about it with interns as well, that we've shared with them, and I want to take the time to share it in this podcast too.
Mhm.
But we've talked about this idea of, for one, the trickster's triangle, which is a great visual, and then we kind of have this idea of the real message behind the trickster's triangle is trying to find your way off of it. And so, how do we find our way off of this trickster's triangle into the second concept that we have, which is called the accountability loop? So,
Mm.
can you touch on that for me really quick, Mr. Brown?
Gotcha. So yeah, so the trickster triangle, it's a concept that I learned years ago that it was really enlightening. It was really enlightening because it's called a drama triangle in some places, but it really brings perspective to just about any situation we find ourselves in. And with the trickster's triangle, as a triangle, it has three legs, and we're talking about a victim, we're talking about a villain, and we're talking about a hero. And if we just imagine ourselves going through any interaction during the day where there's some sort of strife or negative energy going on, you can find the trickster's triangle and you can play any role in the triangle at any given time. Let's say for an example, if I'm running late for a meeting, if I'm running late for a meeting, I can say I'm running late for the meeting because somebody held me up at a red light. Now I'm playing the victim,
Mhm.
right? And in order for me to play the victim, I have to identify a villain. And so now I'm actually making somebody else a villain. And so then when I get to the meeting and I'm complaining, I'm the victim. I done made somebody else a villain. Then you can have somebody step in and say something like, well, you know what? You're never late. So it's okay. Now we got a hero. So now we have somebody that's coming in to save us from the situation that we actually put ourselves in,
Mm.
right? And so that's really what the trickster's triangle looks like. It looks like at any given time you can be either one of the people. You could be the person that's saying this person wronged me, so I'm making myself the villain. You can actually be a person that says something to somebody. So we're talking about accountability. You can say something to somebody to hold them accountable. They take it wrong, then they make you the villain, right? And then somebody who feels about them or feels some kind of way about them or realizes that their feelings are hurt may come to their aid and say, hey, why don't you change the way you talk to them? Now they become the hero.
Yes.
And so now they're stepping in and they're trying to save somebody from what they perceive as something wrong happening to them. And so that's what the trickster's triangle looks like. It's the victim, it's the villain, and it's the hero. And just remembering that we can be any of those three at any given time.
Right. Definitely. And so we're touching on that. The thing that was always insightful to me, it's actually the message that you shared with me when I was learning about that concept of the trickster triangle. But because naturally you might think, oh, okay, so I should be looking to be the hero on the trickster's triangle.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I don't want to be the victim. We're talking about victim mentality. I don't want to be that. Also, I don't want to be the villain. I don't want to be the person that people are looking at me like I've wronged them or I've wronged somebody else. So naturally, you could say, I think I want to be the hero on the triangle. But the insight that you shared with me actually looked like, no, we want to step off the triangle
Step off
altogether
the
Yeah.
triangle.
onto
Step off.
into something else, something different. So can you explain what that looks like, stepping off of the triangle?
Yeah, and it's interesting. I'm a maybe move forward in where we're going, but yes. So the thing is, if I play the hero, the thing is, I may look at myself as being the hero, but then somebody else may look at me as being the villain
Right.
because now I'm trying to come to the aid of somebody else, and they can say, "Well, but you jumping on my throat, down my throat," so now I become the villain to them, and so then they become the victim, and so it's what it really is about is that that forms a cycle, and
Right.
it's a cycle that will never end. It will never end. And so, like you said, when we talk about it, we say, well, the key to it is stepping off the triangle. And I never had anything that visually represented stepping off the triangle until I ran into the accountability loop. And so, what stepping off the triangle looks like is okay, I'm refusing to play your game. I'm not going to be the hero. I'm not going to be the villain. I'm not going to be the victim. But I will evaluate what's going on and find out what my role is in it, right? And improve myself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I refuse to be your victim. So I'm not the victim. And I refuse to let that energy be redirected to you. So I'm not going to be the villain either. And if you're the person that's caught, if you need advice, you can ask me for advice, but I'm not going to come to your aid because I'm not going to be your hero. Because again, in becoming your hero, it just completes the cycle. So stepping off is refusing to play either one of those roles, but still at the same time, understanding the circumstance of the situation that you're in so that then you can move into full accountability, which is where I think we're going to go next.
Yeah. I'll just say something real quick. It's the advice is always try to recognize that it's there and try not to find yourself in the middle of it. So, how do you just carefully avoid it? Because sometimes, even avoiding it, someone can bring that to your attention and try to create something so it sounds like you're a villain or you're something just because you're trying to recognize and stay in your lane or out of that lane.
Correct. Yeah. So people make you a villain in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm not even playing. What do you mean?
Absolutely. And I love that you brought that topic up because I actually did want to touch on that some more. This idea of how do we, if we don't want to be caught on this triangle, if we don't want to, make ourselves the victim, the villain, or the hero, how can we identify when we are on the triangle? Would be my next question. Do you have any insight on, how might I recognize, oh, I'm playing this game that I don't want to play. I want to go about this a different way.
Well, okay. I don't. Let's see. I may not have the answer, but I want to add to that question because, or get some advice on the situations that I found myself in. Because sometimes I try to be an equalizer, or I try to bring harmony, or I try to make situations not look so bad just so I can keep people motivated. But that's the rescuer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and, and so and so what I am, because of the focus of what we're talking about, what we're trying to do, I have to focus on that and try to find my balance and not be the one all the time. So that's something I just wanted to offer the conversation in this conversation.
So I'm gonna throw in another concept, a concept that we have not talked about, but I just want to just briefly touch on. It's called 100, 100, 100, right?
Mm.
100, 100, 100. And what typically happens with people is we think that we can give more than 100, but we really can't. And so by attempting to give more than 100, we rob other people of the opportunity to give 100.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And so in a situation where you realize that you either trying not to give 100,
Mm-hmm.
right? Playing the victim, trying to give more than 100, playing the hero. You see what I'm saying? That is how you recognize, hey, I'm on a triangle. Because it's all about really trying to it's back to accountability. We're talking about it's coach people up to accountability. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you try to overcompensate for somebody who's not being accountable, you're on the triangle.
Mm-hmm.
When you're trying not to be accountable, you're on the triangle. Right. So that's living on the triangle. So that's victim mentality, that's hero mentality. And then again, with the villain, you can be made the villain even if you're not trying to be the villain.
Right.
Because if you're trying to overcompensate for somebody else, then somebody can look at that and say, hey, why are you doing their work? Whatever. Now you're the villain. So people make you the villain. It's not like anybody goes out of their way to be a villain. It's just that somebody perceives that they are being wrong. And so when they make themselves the victim, whoever they perceive as making them a victim becomes the automatic villain. And so really, if you look at it, it's about that 100, 100, 100. It's like everybody gives 100, they expect 100. But if you try to overgive, you're trying to be a hero. If you try to undergive, you're making yourself a victim.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very interesting to me. I love that concept, that idea of 100, 100, 100. If I'm giving more than 100, I might be robbing somebody else of their opportunity to give 100.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but it gives me this feeling or this thought process of, okay, now this triangle might just be something that's held within me. Like you said, anybody can go ahead and make you out to be the villain.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody could try to look over and call on you to be their hero if they find themselves in this victim mentality.
Mm-hmm.
So it almost sounds like okay, in a perfect world, we all step off the cycle. But at the very least, I can do my part by stepping off the cycle and also sharing with others how they can also step off of this cycle and find this accountability for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting that you put it that way, because if you think about it, if you refuse to play, a person can't be on the triangle by themselves. That's why you step off.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
Because you'll have somebody sit there and they'll try to play the victim, right? And they either want to make you a villain or call you in to be a hero, and you just simply choose not to play.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. Oh, you're mad at me? I'm sorry to hear that. Okay, just refuse to play, because
Mm-hmm.
that's it takes in a drama. Like again, they call it the drama triangle as well.
Yeah.
In a drama, it takes two people to cause a drama, and so if you continue to refuse to play, it they can't do it by themselves. I mean, they can sit there on the triangle, but it takes more than one person to be on the triangle,
Mm-hmm.
and
yeah.
that's the victim mentality.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm just gonna sit here until I find a hero. I'm gonna sit here until I find a villain, because we look for villains all the time.
Absolutely.
When we fall short and we are subconscious about the fact that we fall short, we look for a victim.
Right.
It's amazing. It's amazing how that happens. I'm late again. Like I said, I'm late to work. I find a reason to give that I'm late to work that has nothing to do with me getting up late.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Or me not getting my clothes ready ahead of time. I find a reason, so I find a victim.
Right.
And at that point, I want my boss to be the hero and say, "Well, I know you was late, but I'm not gonna hold it against you."
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what it's funny. It's almost like a natural propensity of people to to find victimhood. And that's why I said when I said superimpose themselves at the bottom, because anytime we fall short, the first thing we tend to do is try to find out the deficiency in somebody else. Because if we find a deficiency in somebody else, we can shine the light away from ourselves. And so as we again start talking about this whole accountability piece,
Yeah.
that's why it's so important to want to take accountability. Because what that means is I find myself short, I'm going to shine the light on myself and find out what I have done wrong to put me in this position. Doesn't mean that I've done everything wrong, but I had a part to play in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so figuring out what that is the only thing that we can control.
Yeah, I agree.
Most definitely. And especially because trying or making sure that you're not the victim or you're not looking at yourself as the victim, that's accountability. That is, okay, let me not find a reason. Let me figure out what I could have done. Maybe with this example, like you said, I showed up late to work. Instead of looking at, okay, um, I was already 10 minutes late, but something happened at the light. So now I was 15 minutes late. Instead of using that as a reason to be late in general, you might want to look back and say, like, okay, do I need to set my alarm earlier?
Mhm.
Right.
Is
Right.
that something that would help me so that I'm not, I'm not putting myself in that bad position? And do I need to set out my clothes the night before?
Right.
So I'm
Right.
not waking up scrambling trying to get all my stuff together. Just ways to go about, okay, what can I do instead of becoming the victim? Now, how do I look at what decisions I can make? How do I have power to change the situation instead
Mhm.
of going to someone to make them a villain or going to someone to make them a hero? And so I love that concept. It does give me a question, though.
Okay.
It does give me a question. So we see stepping off the triangle as a victim. It looks like, okay, how do we make the best decision? How do you, what is a way that, because people will bring something to you to make you the villain, or they'll bring something to you to make you the hero. So stepping off that triangle that way might look a little different. How do you refuse to participate in the game? How do you refuse to participate in the cycle, but do that with grace? I guess would be my question.
Ooh, ooh, that's a good one.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was gonna let you
That's
have
the
that because
wrench that it threw for me.
I don't know if I want to do it with Grace.
Well, see, well, see, that's the um what I described earlier is exactly what I meant by, or what I mean by the rescuer. It just has the look and feel of a rescuer, but it's just trying, part of it is just trying to own up to my own position on how I want to perform and how I choose not to participate. But then there's a mix for me. There's a mix of me wanting to offer some grace, and it can look like that rescuer role.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
but but really, it's me deciding what my position is in it, and declaring what my position is in it. And if in the process of me sharing that, I'm demonstrating a level of behavior and performance that says I'm not going to participate in that triangle, that's what it is. And so I don't know, man. I try to offer grace in everything I do, but I also want to let folks know I'm about performing, I'm about being successful, and I'm not about being a part of the mess and the noise of the triangle.
Mhm.
This is a hard one for me, because grace is what we're supposed to be about.
Yep.
We're supposed to be about, and so I guess I see grace differently. Not from you, but just I just see grace differently, because for me, I wonder, in order to extend grace, does someone have to be willing to move from where they are? Hmm. I'm
Mhm.
stepping off the triangle. I'm inviting you to step off the triangle with me.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not coming to save you. Right? So you lost your job. I understand you lost your job. I'm not going to hold it against you that you lost your job. But now let's sit down and talk about why you lost your job.
Mm-hmm.
What can you do to improve on your whatever it was that caused you to lose your job? It doesn't mean that you did anything bad on your job. It could mean that it was just time for them to let you go or whatever. Who knows? But again, in every situation we're in, there's an opportunity to learn. And so if I'm going to invite somebody off the triangle and I'm going to extend grace, they have to be willing to have that self discovery. because that means that they want to get off the triangle. Too often, what happens is we step off the triangle and we end up trying to pull people off the triangle, which makes us the victim or the
Mhm.
hero, right? And so extending grace, I'm almost wondering if a person has to want grace or receive grace in
Yeah.
order for it to be extended.
Mhm.
Yeah. Can I add some? I mean, I think when you're offering that kind of advice, that's an opportunity to offer the grace. But if they're not going to accept the grace,
Yeah.
that's also the opportunity to say, well, I'm going to go back to where I am, where I plan to be, where I choose to be, and keep rolling. Because you can't, you're not going to force people to change. You can
Right.
offer them an avenue, and you can help them navigate through that avenue. But if they ain't trying to take one step, there's only so much you can do.
Right. Right. And it's funny. I learned this, and this was in a spiritual context, but it said grace takes away the grief, was what I've learned. Grace takes
Mm.
away the grief. And so a lot of people don't want to let the grief go.
Right.
Mhm.
They prefer to sit in a victim mentality.
Right.
Right? Because in sitting in a victim mentality, I got to keep going to accountability. And sitting in a victim mentality, I don't have to be accountable. Being
Mhm.
accountable is hard,
That's a
right?
weight right
That's
there.
a heavy weight, right?
Mhm.
That's a heavy weight. That means I'm willing to forgive other people for the role that they play in my detriment
Mhm.
so that I can get to the role that I play in my detriment.
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
And so, but a lot of people don't want it. I mean, it's like, but they did me wrong. But they did me wrong. Yes, they did. And
Mhm.
you know what? They had a right to do you wrong. Well, no, they didn't. No, you can't take away their right. I can't say that it is right, but they acted upon what they wanted to act upon. You can't control that. The question is, hey, maybe you knew that they had the propensity or ability to do it, and you should have stayed away from them. If that's what it is, that's what you need to know. And so, again, in this inviting people off, if in this showing grace, I think it's all about also, sharing with them, hey, let's look at accountability. Let's look at what we've done in this situation to put us in this situation and see if there's anything that we could have done differently or better or worse to not make ourselves get on the triangle in the beginning.
Mhm.
And I love everything that was said there, what both of y'all shared. This idea of, okay, doing it with grace might look like I'm not just hopping off the cycle. Before I hop off the cycle, I'm going to extend a hand and offer you the opportunity to step off the cycle with me. But then also with that, just because grace is extended doesn't mean grace has to be accepted.
Right.
Right.
And then there was something that you said, as you were finishing just now, that reminds me of a concept that it kind of blew my mind at the time. It was from a book that I read called Circe. But just to paraphrase what it was talking about, in the book, there was a commander, and he was talking about he had troops that didn't always, follow his commands.
Mhm.
And so basically, the question was, how do you plan or how do you make a plan with involving other people if you can't expect them to follow along with the plan that you set? And his response essentially was, if you can't make a plan where the plan is followed, then you have to make a plan where others don't follow the plan. And so this idea of, okay, sometimes to remove yourself from being the victim, okay, now, okay, they might have, they played their part. They had their role in it. Now,
Mhm.
what can I do? It might look like, okay, how do I put myself in a better position where I don't have to rely on that person to do that? Or how do I
Mhm.
put myself in a position where, you know, just like you said, there's always a lesson to learn. What lesson can I take from this so I don't end up back in that same place? Because you don't want to just blame that person, whether they did something wrong or not. What can I then do going forward in the future to make sure that I don't end up back in that place? Also, that they don't end up back in that place.
Right.
Maybe I shouldn't give that person that much rope.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was definitely a powerful concept to me.
And that was powerful what you just said too, by the way. Maybe I don't give that person that much rope because sometimes we do give people too much power,
Mhm.
too much availability, too much flexibility, too much access
Hmm.
that and they can't handle it. And so even in a situation like that, I have to look at myself and say, hey, did I know that they couldn't handle it and I gave them that much? And
Mm-hmm.
that's what happened. And so it's always about accountability. It's all, I mean, it's always about accountability. No one, no matter what role you were on the triangle or put in on the triangle, it is all about accountability. And it's all about taking a look at yourself and seeing how you can improve yourself. And then
Right.
modeling that for other people.
Right. Right. And if I can add one other thing, when you go through the process of practicing accountability, or let's just say to what you said, Trey, trying to put yourself in a position so you're not in that situation again. I look at, well, maybe something will happen that you do find yourself in that position again. Hopefully you have learned something about, how to change, how to move from that position so that you're not dwelling in that position. You're not, just waddling in your misery. You know that, oh man, I done found myself in this position again, but you know what? I know how to do this now. So I
Hmm.
know how to act on this now. And so I'm not going to stay here. I'm going to move. I'm going to, and so that whole, you've got peaks and valleys, and I'm using this and I might not have the right terms in the financial arena. You're either going to be making money or losing money, but you want to figure out how do you curve that bottom, that bottom loop so it doesn't go down as far. And that's
Mm-hmm.
so that you can maintain at a level of good performance and try to keep on the positive side, which is off of the triangle and onto great performance, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's almost to me it reminded me of that saying, a lesson will repeat itself until learned.
Ah,
Mm,
Okay. I found myself in this situation. If I
yeah.
choose, I'm going to be the victim. Next time around, there's nothing that I know how to do besides to be the victim again.
mm-hmm.
Do I want to
Mm-hmm.
keep repeating this cycle of, okay, this happens and now I'm the victim? Or do I want to, this time, let me see what I can do. So next time it comes around, okay, I've done the work. I've studied, I saw or tried to see how I could go about this differently. So now this time I know how to change the outcome.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's the true power of, really trying to separate from that victim mentality and focusing on accountability. Your accountability gives you the freedom to not find yourself repeating lessons that need to be learned. Let's go
Yeah.
ahead and learn the lesson now, and that frees you up to have so many more opportunities for you going forward.
Right.
So I love that.
Yeah.
And I'll say absent, even looking at the triangle and victim and everything else, it really is about again modeling, but when you're training or coaching people up, just always having like I know when we do things, we always have a lessons learned. We're always talking about plus minuses and deltas and just getting people in the habit of doing these plus minuses and deltas, personal plus minuses and deltas after every situation. It can be a positive situation, it can be a negative situation, it can be a neutral situation. But doing this plus, minus, and delta because that brings about accountability. Because what we're always doing is figuring out what are we doing well, what are we not doing so well, and what can we change in the future. And so
Mhm.
we want to invite people into accountability, and we're talking about an accountability check. If we want to invite people into accountability, we have to give them the tools that it takes to do this. And I think having that lessons learned, that plus, minus, and delta session, even on a personal level with yourself, after every interaction. Again, every impactful interaction, I'll say, whether
Right.
positive, negative, or neutral, just trying to figure out, man, that was a great interaction. Like, am I happy with the outcome of that interaction? Do I think it could have been better? If it could have been better, what could I have done better? Right? What could I what is it, did I talk too long? Did I talk too little? Was my cologne bad? Whatever that situation is.
Right.
But
Right.
just try to sit down and just and in the times, and I call it low hanging fruit. In those times when it really doesn't matter, it's the easiest times to learn the process,
Hmm.
right? And so, like, say for instance, if you got a job interview and you got to have this job, that might not be the best time to try to, really learn how to do it.
Right. Right.
It's like, okay, I'm going out to a networking event and maybe I'll meet somebody that got a job. Now, after I go back and I sit down and I evaluate, now, what could I have done better? What could I have done differently? What should I have avoided doing? And so if I'm learning in those opportunities and those low threshold opportunities, it makes me better and easier. Like really, we can do plus minus and deltas on the fly now. I can make a comment and I sit back and then do a plus minus and delta in my head right now. So that when I come back to you in 10 minutes, it might be a total different person. I reframe my whole mindset. Because if we go back to the triangle, you can have, like, say for instance, you're sitting in a restaurant. You're sitting in a restaurant and your waiter comes over and your waiter says something that offends you. You have an opportunity to get on the triangle.
Right.
You have an opportunity to get
Right.
on the triangle. What do? How do you go through lessons learned, a plus, minus, and delta to be accountable for the interaction, the negative interaction that you just had with your waiter? So when they come back over there with your water, they don't spit in it. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Right.
to me, it's
No, that's
that
real.
drastic. Or I mean, going to a drive-through and it's a negative interaction. And so, how do you on a fly take accountability for that interaction so that you can change the dynamic so that your food ain't cold or messed up or whatever by the time they give it to you? And so that's what accountability really looks like. It really looks like having a growing process that anytime a negative interaction happens or a interaction that seems like it's going off the rail, that on the fly, you can take accountability for it and you can do something to improve the situation. Now, it's easy to sit back and be the victim and say, she must be having a bad day. He must be having a bad day. But that's not going to improve the quality of the service that you're about to receive. So you might want to figure out how to take accountability for the moment so it can improve.
That's good.
Right.
That's good.
How to make sure you like you said, you have the opportunity to step onto that cycle. How do you do that quick check, that quick analysis in the moment to make sure, okay, let me not step onto this?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it might be it's funny. I saw a TikTok today that was going around, and it was a person saying, "Oh, so I'm the villain of your story. All right, well then come be the hero." And it's
Mm.
like sometimes you might deal with the person that's their mentality. It might be the waiter came up and they were rude to you. You're offering them grace could be, treating them with kindness anyway.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They might not accept that grace, but that's your way of making sure, okay, I'm not stepping into this cycle. No, I'm
Yeah.
not going to try to come be the hero and fight and battle against you if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah. That's good. That's
And
good.
and that happens a lot. I mean, because it's when we react to situations.
Right.
Right? We react to situations. And so we want to get away from reacting to situations. And I mean, even as we talk about, like, I mean, we're about to send these interns out to the labs, right? And we don't know what the interaction is going to be like. But if we can even arm them with this mentality to say,
Right.
hey, you get there, we don't know what your mentor is going to be like. We don't know what the other people in your lab are going to be like. But if the interaction starts out being negative, how do you reframe it so that you can take accountability for it and move it forward in a positive light? Because
Right.
I know they say first impressions are lasting impressions, but that's not always true. Sometimes we can change the dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's going to be a reaction. So we're trying to manage how we react and how, and not only how we react outwardly, but how do we react inwardly? I love when you said you can start doing those plus minuses and deltas on the fly. And a lot of that analysis and evaluation and assessment is all internal.
It's internal.
It's internal. How do I manage this? Oh, I don't think I like what he said. You know what? I'm not going to let this rule me. So now, how do I come out and address that in a way that keeps some positive energy going? So yeah, I love that. I love that.
And I just want to add maybe even another small nugget as we get closer to closing out here. This idea of, I think it is very easy, maybe even preach these days, by social media or whatever content that we're seeing, to go around life looking for villains in life.
Oh
Mm.
man.
Mm.
And so something like that, being able to do the plus, minuses, and deltas in the moment, being able to be like, okay, remind myself, I'm not going to be a victim in this moment. It's easy when you're looking for someone to be a villain to just immediately get caught up in this indignation, to be caught
Mhm.
up in this emotion that just causes you to instantly react. But if you are practicing, like you said, in those moments, low hanging fruit, if you're practicing in the small moments of, okay, how do I take a pause, just a quick pause to do some analysis before I just respond, before I just react, then you can give yourself those same opportunities in a big moment to make sure that you're not finding yourself on that triangle again.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with that. I agree with that. We full of
So,
gotchas now, man. We done got you. We got to got you. We got to got you.
absolutely.
And it's not about right or wrong, right? It's always about personal accountability. Okay,
Right.
okay, this ain't going. This is going the wrong way. This ain't. It's going the wrong way. How can I de-escalate this situation? Because it ain't going the right way. So
Absolutely. Definitely want to make sure that we're taking that time to pause
Yeah.
and, instead of looking for that villain, create an opportunity to de-escalate. Also, just like you said, we should be about grace. Create
mhm.
opportunities, look for opportunities to extend grace instead of opportunities to, you know, play the role of the victim. Or look for opportunities to, you know, find better outcomes or create a path to a better outcome
Yeah.
than looking for an opportunity to be the victim. And that's really a major statement, I would say. It's something that I definitely think is very important for today. But I
Absolutely.
do appreciate you both for taking us on this conversation. This was a great conversation. I know I feel like I learned a lot. Um,
I know I
and
did.
so yeah. And so
Good.
that's why I love having these conversations. That's what the podcast is all about. We're not just preaching, we're not just on our soapbox. We're here to learn too. Sometimes we learn
Absolutely.
through conversation. Hopefully, you guys can learn from our conversations as well out there. And also, if you have something special, you know, a situation that I've been looking at to get some dialogue on that, reach out to us. We're on social media. You can also go to our website and just, send in your questions and we'll see how we can cover those topics. But again, this is the From the Desk of the Deans podcast. Thank you all for rocking with us, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Awesome. See you later.